what do we do in our lives when we have obstacles? This prayer, this invocation of Rinpoche that we're going to talk about today is about cutting through obstacles, and that can be as simple as not being able to find a parking place. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And or familial problems and so forth on the outer level, and then on the inner level it can be issues with our mind, and then on the sort of secret, most inner level, it can be deep spiritual obstacles. And this prayer is intended for all three levels. And so you see up on the screen, I have this beautiful prayer that was discovered by Chokyu Dechen Lingpa, the treasure revealer. And you can read about Chokyu Dechen Lingpa in the Blazing Splendor. It's a wonderful, rip-roaring account of the Chokyu Dechen Lingpa, the heroic yogi, visionary, revelatory, treasure-revealing king. And you can, the people that are closest to the specific tradition of Chokyu Dechen Lingpa, just so you know, are the folks at Rongjung Yeshe Institute and all their spin-offs with the three brothers, and then the nephew, Phakchog Rinpoche, who has a wonderful video up about it. I have a link to his video, 12-minute video about this prayer, right on in the notes to this video. It says preview mode here. What is preview mode? Are you seeing me, people? I'm having a really hard time. It says I'm live. Okay. Back to live mode. Huh. I see. Okay. I'm learning. I'm having technical difficulties. And you know what works for that is do some Sangye Guru Rinpoche, this beautiful prayer. So let's do it together. So maybe my stream will go well. You say it like this. Do some Sangye Gye Guru Rinpoche. This is the back of the tongue. The back of your tongue is touching the roof of your mouth. It's a sound we don't have in English. So if you're familiar with Ngundro, our foundational practice is same ngo. Ngodrup, kundak dewa chimpo jap, barche kunsel, dundul dakpo sal. It says doodle, but the Tibetans really say dundul. Drakpo sal, soa depso, jingi laps, tu sol, chinang sangwe, barche shiwadang, sampalungi dupar jingi lob. And this, I memorized this years and years ago, decades ago, when Gyaltsen Rinpoche of Tashi Choling on the west coast in Urgen Dorje Den, who is still with us. I read in a newsletter he did, and when I was youthful and full of vigor, he said, you need to memorize this prayer. And really, I want everybody to memorize this prayer. Now, I wasn't his direct disciple. I did receive empowerment from him, I'm happy to say. But I took it to heart, and I memorized this prayer, and then it came in handy so many times. And for me, it's I don't want to use profanity here. When things are really hitting the wall, I say it all the time, but when I really, really need help, I summon up Guru Rinpoche with this 6-line prayer, and I'm really glad I know it. For example, I'm going to tell you a secret. One time I was working in a clinic as a nurse practitioner, and someone complained about me to the boss. And the boss showed me this letter where they were unhappy with me. And I talked to her about it, and then I put it in my trash can. I thought we were done with it. Then I got this alarmed message, like on my day off or something. I think it was a day off in between, that the boss said, "Where's that letter? It needs to go in your file." Well, of course, that was the kiss of death, right? When they want to keep it in your file, you're in trouble. But anyway, I was naive. But I knew that I was in trouble because the cleaners most certainly would have come and taken that letter out of there. And so I prayed all the way up the highway that it was still there. And it was. So now, You could argue lots of things about the rationality of that. We don't need rationality right now. We need help. So this is the way you cry out to Guru Rinpoche. And, the great lamas of the past, the great Rinpoches, the treasure of Yudron, as they say, you go up to the top of a mountain every now and then, and you just shout out this prayer or the 7-line prayer to Guru Rinpoche, which you can do on another day, with all your heart until your tears are streaming down your face. Guru Rinpoche, I need your help. Help me. And it was with great feeling of devotion. And I have so merged with this, I don't have any of those Western thoughts like, where is Guru Rinpoche? We can talk about what the classical teaching is about where he is right now as we're talking. Is he inside me? Is he outside of me? What does it mean to have something outside of you when everything is illusory? All these intellectual questions. When you're hurting, and what we really should care about is our practice, right? More than all this letter went into the trash and is it there anymore, or getting a parking place. But anyway, it's good for all these things, inner, outer, and secret. So please do, you guys, memorize this prayer and say it and try it. Try it out and see if it helps. So it's supposed to help your meditation, for example, your practice, come through to a next level. So we do it all the time in the middle of our Sokar feast ceremonies. You'll notice if you've been to one, you don't know this prayer, all these people are murmuring to themselves, quite often as the ritual feast is being passed out in any Nyingma tradition. And okay, so I saw the video by Phakchog Rinpoche, who's in this lineage, and he told me, which I had suspected, that each line of this prayer has which way should I look to look like I'm looking at the page? Oh, good, that works. No, that doesn't work. This way. Yeah, that works. The opposite. Do some Sangye Guru Rinpoche. Each line of the first 3 lines refers to 3 specific sadhanas in their treasure cycle. So that's a thing. But clearly it's been incorporated every Rinpoche, every lineage that reveres Guru Rinpoche. It's the condensation kind of a whole body of very long Guru Rinpoche prayers. And so we want that, right? We want a condensation because we can memorize it. We can not only memorize it, but know what each line means. And so let's go through it. Do some Sangye. Do some 3 times. Sangye is Buddha. And what does Buddha mean? Is he a little guy sitting under the Bodhi tree in in Bodhgaya? A person? Yes, but Buddha here means enlightenment. So you could say, enlightened of essence of all the enlightened beings, all those who've passed into complete enlightenment of the 3 times. And 3 times is past Buddhas. Like, for example, Dongse Telenor Rinpoche is past, and he was definitely a Buddha. Passed a few years ago, like that. And then a few present Buddha. We could look at Dujum Sangye Pema Shepa Rinpoche, or many of the other great lamas of our day. And then the future Buddha, Maitreya Buddha. Rinpoche is supposed to be born in the future and be a very influential force. In the future Buddha, next big Buddha, Maitreya's life in the future. And I'm praying, and here's, the mind-bending part of it, where we're praying to a future Buddha, somebody who anyway, don't think too hard about it. So Guru Rinpoche, Guru means heavy with precious qualities. It's a famous word, and with, maybe some people have developed not so great feelings about the word guru from certain people who use the word in regard to themselves who weren't really fit. It wasn't really fitting. They didn't have great qualities. But let's not think that way. Let's think positive. And then Rinpoche is precious jewel, or most precious, we could say. Most precious teacher. This enlightened being, always there. Always from beginningless time up until forever, is always there. Ngudrup Kundak, the master of all cities. In Tibetan, the subject is the beginning of the line in these hymnal kind of prayers. And so whereas the subject here is the master of all cities, and cities is like all spiritual accomplishments. Dewa Chenpo is like great exaltation. Shop is here refers to like a venerable. And so they're using guru here again. And then this is where the word Barche comes in. Barche Kunsel, dispeller of all obstacles. Cells like dispel here. Kun is all. Barche is obstacles. All different levels like we talked about. Outer, inner, secret. I hope you caught that part of the video. And Dundal Drakpostel is Tel is kind of adept or adept. Drakpo is like really intense, or could be wrathful. And Dundal, demon subduer. So what are demons? And Tongsen Rinpoche preferred the word Tongsen Rinpoche when I heard him talking about the 4 Maras, are often translated as demons. He liked the word evil forces, so we're going to use that here. The 4 evil forces are symbols, I'm reading from a text, of obstacles encountered on the path. So it's the evil force of the aggregates, and that means all our psychophysical constituents together that we mistake and mistakenly identify as an I or self. And then the evil force of the second evil force is the evil force of defilements, and the defilements are our afflictive emotions. We talked about that a lot. The third is the evil force of death, which can refer obviously to death itself, which can certainly cut off your chance of cultivating awakening in this life. And then, but it also can refer to the transience of all phenomena. And then the fourth is this child of the gods, and that some would say distraction and mental wandering, and some would say like that's some saying, I got it, I understand, and kind of this frozen idea of accomplishment or pride. So those are our 4 big enemies. We don't really have enemies as Buddhists, but you know it's a symbolic. And in the story of the Buddha himself, great evil forces rose up, you know, symbolically embodied with arms and legs that in his visionary experience that were, as he was right about to become enlightened, they really came up with some force. And so one of my great lamas said, this is how it is for us, that as soon as right when we're on the verge of something great, the whole array of evil forces, the biggest of which is this sense of I, right? The first one rears up, and this is really harsh, really tough. But you have to know when that happens that you are on the verge of something great. So that's the solace in that. Okay, so so Adepso Jingilab to so to you I pray, inspire me with your blessing. Their translator likes inspire. Some like Jingilab, waves of blessing. Depends on, there's different approaches to that topic. What is a blessing? We'll talk a little bit about that. Outer, inner, and obstacles so that they're dispelled, and all my aspirations are spontaneously fulfilled. Phakchog Rinpoche said he liked it. I thought it was an interesting idea. Lungidrup is typically translated as spontaneously, but he just said automatically. Just boom, automatically it's all fulfilled. So I'm going to bring the my level down. Way, we're going down. We're going down. I need to sit down. And so we've gone through it line by line, but now let's talk about some of the other key points. Yes, I have a sit-stand desk. So, Guru Rinpoche, he came from Udayana, and he went to India. He studied with all the great masters. He was already, from birth, he was born on a lotus miraculously. And then he studied with every single great master. He studied every teaching, from sutras all the way up to the great perfection tantras. And he accomplished a great perfection and rainbow body. And he actually, they think he traveled in his body of light to Tibet. So that's how we regard Guru Rinpoche, the person. So there can't be anybody you pray to that has accomplished more than Guru Rinpoche, because he completely accomplished full enlightenment. So the idea of full enlightenment is that you are able to benefit beings, right? So there he is. He did it 100%. And he's there now. It's okay to ask for his help. Do some Sangye Guru Rinpoche. Let's say it for a while. Let's do it in English first. Embodiment of Buddhas of the past, present, and future, Guru Rinpoche, master of all cities, Guru of great bliss, dispeller of all obstacles, wrathful subjugator of Maras. To you I pray, inspire me with your blessing, so that outer, inner, and secret obstacles are dispelled, and all my aspirations are spontaneously fulfilled. Dusum Sangye Guru Rinpoche Ngadu Kanda Dewa Jempo Shai Parche Kunsal Dundu Japusal So Adipso Jingi Laptu So Chinang Sangwe Parche Shiwadang Sampalungi Dupai Jingi Lo Dusum Sangye Guru Rinpoche Ngudut Kanda Dewa Chempo Sham Parche Gunsam Dundu Japu Sam So Adem Se Jingi Laptu Som Chinang Sangwe Parche Shiwadang Sampalungi Dupai Jingi Lo Dusum Sangye Guru Rinpoche Ngudu Kanda Dewa Chempo Shap Bache Kansal Dundu Drapo Sam So Adem Se Jingi Laptu So Chinang Sangwe Bache Shiwadang Sampalungi Dupai Jingi Lo. And with Guru Rinpoche, you can do a visualization of him in his we'll call the Nirmanakaya form, the form he actually appeared to ordinary sentient beings like us. So I'll bring a couple of those pictures up on the screen here. Let's use the one version here. It's a nice clear one. Thank you, Pixabay. We'll just bring it over like that. Love my app. Okay. So here's a typical presentation in Nirmanakaya form. So first of all, Rinpoche's body, his body, speech, and mind include everything. All objects of veneration. All dharmas. He mastered everything 100%. His body is Sangha, his speech is Dharma, his mind is Buddha. His body is a guru, his speech is a yidam, his mind is the dakini. His body is Nirmanakaya, his speech is Sambhogakaya, his mind is Dharmakaya. Typically, he's represented as gold here. Applying gold to a statue is very positive. Typically, he's white with a reddish hue when he's in this posture. This posture is called suppression by splendor. This, you can see the hand gesture there, which we'll get to. And he's white with a reddish hue because that's the union of skillful means and wisdom, right? We've been talking about that, the Sherab and Tap in or Prajna and Upaya. And his posture, this royal ease, with one leg is slightly extended, ready to, like Tara, to get up and help sentient beings at a moment's notice. Actually, no notice. You just cry out to him, and he comes, and he's with you. His Vajra in the right hand is indestructible wisdom. The skull cup is filled with deathless wisdom nectar and a long life vase, symbolizing the giving of ordinary and supreme cities. He lived for centuries, so he certainly had the long life city for sure. And so the stopper of the long life vase, you can kind of see it there above you see the half skull, the sort of skull top he's holding in his hand upside down, right? Filled with nectar. And then inside that, there's, that's what they call a vase. It's a ritual object that holds things. And it's a specific shape for bestowing the city of long life. And on top of that, there should be, if we squint, a wish-fulfilling jewel, and this is a common expression in Dharma, like everything you can imagine is fulfilled by praying to Guru Rinpoche. And then the staff in his left hand, on top of that, it's called the whole thing is called the Katvanga, and then the trident on the top. There's many different explanations for which three that represents. Victory over the three poisons, essence, nature, and responsiveness, the Dzogchen terminology. Mastery over the 3 times, we've been through that, the Dusum, right? Past, present, and future. And then the skulls on there, you see tiny up there near the trident top, is, represent the 3 kayas, the 3 skulls there. And then there's a piece of hair hanging from that somewhere. Yeah, I don't think you can see it so well. And that represents the subjugation of all wrathful dakas and dakinis. And then the damaru hanging from it. There actually is, if you look, it's hard to point. I can't really point on this projected screen, I don't think. But dangling down there's a damaru or a hand drum. It represents the perfection of the wisdom of the Sambhogakaya. There's streamers coming off of it, represent the 5 elements. There's 5 colors representing the 5 elements that everything is made from. The bell, there's a bell hanging on there too. Perfection of wisdom of the Nirmanakaya represents the mirror hanging on there, the perfection of wisdom of the Dharmakaya. 9 iron rings representing the 9 vehicles of the way the whole entire, all Dharma practices are characterized in terms of an escalating scale of 9 vehicles or yanas, and then the top is great perfection. Then what I typically remember very easily, because Lama Tarchin Rinpoche taught it to me, and I've heard it described other ways too, is if I'm looking at Rinpoche. So you'll see around his neck there's a little white fringe there, and that's actually like a white undershirt, and that represents this white, stainless white shirt represents his Dzogchen mastery of Dzogchen practice. And then this blue, you see the blue coming through, represents his accomplishment of all of Tantra. And then he has a red cape. Can't see too often this angle. I'll bring up some more pictures. And that represents him being a monk in one of his sort of manifestations or lifetimes. He was kind of life periods. He was a monk, mastered that, and has a little inlaid gold. And then the outer garment is sometimes described as purple or brown, and it is heavily brocaded, and it's representing a kingliness. Then the lotus-shaped hat, that's supposed to be lotus-shaped, folks. That is a fawn skins cap, fawn, baby deer, topped with a half Vajra and a vulture feather. There you go. And the outside of the cap represents the creation stage of Tantra. I know I'm throwing around a lot of terms you don't know, but it's interesting. The outer garment, the inside of the cap is the completion stage. The half Vajra there, at the top, the adamantine peak of all vehicles, like the Vajra peak. And then the vulture feather on the very top there means he's realized the peak of all the vehicles. If you come to my house, I have a vulture feather on top of my Guru Rinpoche representative Torma. So so what is he, what does this figure look? Let's look at some other figures of Guru Rinpoche. Sorry, I'm running over. I guess I had some problems there with tech. Let's see if we can bring up something else interesting. I love this one. I found it online. It looks Bhutanese to me. It's so elegant. They're amazing artists. His Vajra is going off, so this is cut off there, but you can see, I just love this subtle, beautiful. You can especially see the blue tantric garb here, more prominently displayed. And the monk's robe there with the red and the gold. You typically see the king's robe kind of around the waist, kind of, you can see it better from behind. Isn't that amazing? And I always, when I was starting out in Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, I made a little statue out of modeling clay of this so I could get a feeling for all these layers of robes and remember the symbolism. I can remember it pretty well. And it really helped me make a connection with Guru Rinpoche to work with our hands. We do a lot with art, particularly in the non-monastic tradition where we don't have somebody else we can call up and say, hey, art specialist from the monastery, come on over and make this art. When you need it, you have to do it yourself pretty much. But it's really good. It's a mindfulness practice and learning to be precise and learning those are two really good things. One-pointed concentration. I really should make some art right about now at the end of the pandemic, right? Too much Zoom. Let's see if we have another picture here. I have lots, of course. Just trying to get the ones that are... this one is kind of the very, very elegant also. Yeah. It doesn't have a whole body, but you can see closer up to the three heads there on the Katvanko. Don't you just love it? Wouldn't you? I used to try to imagine Guru Rinpoche. What would I do if I was living in San Francisco and I was really doing a lot of, I'm always doing a lot of Guru Rinpoche practice, but more so even then, getting acquainted. I thought, what if I was, would he stand out, considering you can see any kind of person on the street in San Francisco and nobody breaks a sweat about it, What if you saw this one magnificent person walking down the street? He doesn't look normal. What if I dressed up in that outfit? What would that be like? But we can, Guru Rinpoche is the reminder that we can attain complete enlightenment. Of course I'm not there, and keep working at it all the time. And so calling him up is like calling out also this potential from inside. When you get esoteric, and you can read Mipam's commentary on the 7-line prayer. It's called The White Lotus. It's short-ish. You might make it all the way through. It's well translated. And he goes through all the different levels of interpretation. Of course, ultimately, the Guru Rinpoche is the nature of your own mind, your sort of untapped potential for complete realization within you. So you can walk around and recite this prayer or the mantra of Guru Rinpoche, Omahom Benza Guru Pema Siddhi Hom, to call forth these hidden properties and let them blossom. Remember Padmasambhava, the lotus born, blossom in your heart. You can let him sleep in your heart at night. He doesn't really sleep. You come down, there's a lotus bud there, red lotus bud, opens up. Guru Rinpoche rises all the way up, and when you wake up in the morning and sits there on your top of your head, every color representing, I mean, altogether you have to say it represents every kind of Buddha activity. There's every color there in his manifestation. How many other deities do you know that have every color? I can't think of anybody. Maybe the 100 peaceful and wrathful deities. Everything is complete within Guru Rinpoche. So I highly recommend walking around, memorizing one of these short prayers to Guru Rinpoche and the Vajra Guru mantra wherever you go, and all of your ordinary life can be transformed into the process of awakening. You can take everything onto the path, no matter what you're doing, by crying out to Guru Rinpoche, mentally or verbally. I mean, you actually probably wouldn't get much attention in downtown Oakland, or in my neighborhood, if they just think you were mentally ill, unfortunately. So it doesn't really matter. You can scream out some sangha. We usually warn people. But if you're in a different area, anywhere else in the United States, maybe you want to recite mentally. All right, so I guess that's good enough. I can't say enough about the benefits of this prayer. Please, there's a link to it in the video description. There's another little movie about Phakchog Rinpoche who's so much better at explaining everything than I am. But you can crystallize this vision of Guru Rinpoche as Nirmanakaya form. And he's always with you. All you have to do is call out to him, and he's instantly there. He's here, and your whole house can become a palace, the palace of Guru Rinpoche. Zondok Palri, the Pure Land of Guru Rinpoche. Everybody in it is deities, including the most troublesome person you know that visits you there. They're a deity, and it changes your whole perception of the world and moves us out of the muck and mire of the mud at the bottom of our pond and up, up, up into the blooming lotus and blazing forth as Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava. The Katvanga, by the way, also represents his consort. So it's always skillful means and wisdom together. All right. Thank you for your patience today, everybody. It really was beyond my control, most of it. Our problems. And I'm literally looking forward to seeing you next week. Maybe we could do the 7-line prayer. Why not? We're on a roll. Bye now, everybody.